Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, we're going to address a similar topic to the one we addressed in my last video. If you guys recall, in the last video, we addressed basically the order sequence in which I would recommend CIA level 2 candidates to address the curriculum, and so they could prepare in the most efficient way possible for the CIA level 2 exam. And so in this video I'm going to try to do something similar, but to the ESG Investing Certificate of the CFA Institute. I know that some of you guys have been focusing on getting this particular certification, and so I'm going to try to help you as much as possible by giving you sort of a flavor of the sequence, which I believe is the most efficient for you to tackle the curriculum in order for you to prepare for the exam. And so in this particular contest, I believe that the way the curriculum is structured, I think it's structured in a very particular way in which the topics are addressed in a sequential way, in which the knowledge that is provided to the candidate is progressively deeper and deeper and deeper. So I think it's somewhat appropriate for the candidates who have basically almost no knowledge of ESG. But for more experienced candidates, more experienced in terms of ESG, of course, I believe that there might be some adjustments that can be made in order to make the preparation a little bit more time efficient and also to make it more meaningful for those candidates. And so I would say, for starters, that the first two chapters, I would say they are a little bit less correlated to the other chapters, because, for example, chapter 1 provides you basically an introduction to the most general concepts and the overall purpose of ESG, the institutions, also the agreements that are associated with ESG, while the chapter 2 provides basically an overview of the ESG market worldwide and how ESG is adopted in several continents and jurisdictions. And so if you have no knowledge about ESG, of course, I would recommend you to begin your study with these two chapters, because you will have basically a first introduction to the topic, which would help you later down the road as you progress to more deeper concepts within the field of ESG. But if you are already familiar with ESG, I would recommend that you skip these chapters, because they will always be very familiar to you. So I would say that you would probably make a better use of your time if you focus on the most important chapters, which are the following ones. And in that sense, I would recommend that more experienced candidates within the field of ESG, of course, they begin their study by skipping chapters 1 and 2, and they begin their preparation by studying the chapters 3, 4, and 5, which basically they go deeper into each of the components of ESG. Chapter 3 addresses the environmental component, chapter 4 addresses the social component, and chapter 5 addresses the governance component. And so in that sense, because they provide a deeper understanding of these three components, I feel that more experienced candidates may probably be in tune a little bit better with the curriculum if they begin their study preparation by these chapters. And then once they tackle these chapters, I think it's time for them to basically, also for the less experienced candidates, when they come to these chapters, the third, the fourth, and fifth, once both of types of candidates address these chapters, they would go to the three most important, in my opinion, the three most important chapters of the curriculum, which are the chapters 6, 7, and 8. In my opinion, and this is more of a personal opinion than anything else. Even though the weight of chapter 6, the one on stewardship and engagement, the weight in the exam is not particularly high. It's comparable to the first and second chapters in terms of the amount of questions that you will be asked to answer in the exam. For me, this chapter has a lot of practical value. It is extremely important because it describes basically the wide range of strategies which are available to the investors, to us. And so, in terms of interacting with the companies, also with other stakeholders, and so if you invest in a company, how can you interact with the company so that it can the company can become more aware of your concerns, your needs, your expectations as investor. And so the range of strategies that are provided in this particular chapter, I think they are very important for us, and any investor can pursue some of those strategies at any time. So for me, it has great value, great practical value for your investment career, even though the exam does not put any particular significant weight in this chapter. And then chapter 7 and chapter 8, of course, these are the biggest ones and the most complex ones in the entire curriculum, and so they are the most important, not only because they have the highest weight in the exam, but because they focus basically on the most important purpose of ESG for investors, which is basically in the case of chapter 7, integrating ESG factors, ESG considerations into investment decisions in the selection of particular assets and securities, and in the case of chapter 8, in the portfolio management decisions. And so for me, these are by far the most important topics, the most important topics of the entire curriculum. So these two chapters not only are the most important, they are also the most complex. And for me, these should be the ones to which candidates should devote more of their preparation time. However, you don't need to be scared or daunted by the prospect, because you will notice by this point, if you address the previous chapters, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, you will notice at some point that some of the concepts which are covered in previous chapters are also repeated in here. So you will feel a little bit more familiar with some of the concepts which are addressed in here. Some of the concepts which are repeated, for example, are the benefits, for example, of ESG integration, the fact that supposedly, from an empirical point of view, they should improve returns, they should reduce the risk, and so the risk-adjusted returns are improved. They should also bring the purpose and the scope of the investments more in tune with the client's needs, specific needs. And also it would help to become compliant with not only the current but the upcoming regulatory requirements that may come in, are certainly going to come in the future. These are some of the benefits. Also the fact, and this is a very, very prevalent idea all across the board in the curriculum, it's the fact that if you integrate ESG factors into your investment decision, you should be aware that you will reduce the range of investable assets available to you to invest in, to place in your portfolio. And so because you have less assets available to invest, you will, assuming all else equal, you will have more concentrated positions, and so you end up having a relatively less diversified portfolio. And so these two main outcomes of ESG integration are pretty much prevalent across the curriculum. And so and also these are some of the most important concepts that you will learn as you go through the curriculum. So you will get on top of this for sure. And also, CFA charter holders, I should say, will also find several concepts which are familiar to them. For example, forms of investment screening. How can you screen for particular investments and securities? For example, the concept of manager selection, because different managers have different preferences, different requirements to keep and to meet, and so asset allocation approaches, for example, the mean variance, the also the Letterman as well, um, and also factor exposures as well, for example, uh, which are pertaining to very different investments, which they are more into, or factors which are more, for example, more correlated to value, to growth, for example. And so these concepts, CFHR holders will find this also pretty familiar, I should say. And finally, the last chapter, chapter 9, which has to do with the investment mandates. These are this is a chapter which is, I would say, relatively less important than than chapter 7 and 8, but is related to these, and so I believe this should be covered right after the chapter 7 and 8. Once again, CFHR holders will be familiar with some of the concepts detailed in here. For example, the agency problem, because of course there may be some conflicts of interest between the manager who tries to fulfill specific objectives of his own, but he also has to measure the interests of the client, the suitability of investment mandates, investment styles, investment approaches, and so I would say it is relatively easier to tackle than chapter 7 and 8, even for candidates which do not have investment experience, or are not in tune with, or were not in tune before with the concepts of ESG. So basically, for the more knowledgeable candidates in terms of ESG, of course, I would say that after covering chapters 3 all the way to the 9th, then they should cover chapters 1st and 2nd, to make sure that they will be fully prepared to tackle these respective questions in the exam, even though most of them probably will be already aware of the topics which are addressed in these two chapters. But also for less experienced candidates, it makes sense to study the curriculum, I would say, in the order that the chapters are presented, once again, because you will be introduced to the topics in a progressively deeper fashion. And so in that sense, I would not make any changes to the curriculum when it comes to less experienced candidates. In any case, I think it's important to keep in mind that the most important and the most critical aspect of the preparation, and I think I emphasized already in previous videos of mine, is you must devote most of your time to tackle the practice questions, not only the end of chapter questions, but also the mock exam questions which are provided. And I would say, but this is of course is based on my experience, that I recall that in my exam, the exam is 100 questions, and I can tell for sure that at least probably 4 to 5 questions were exact transcripts of questions that were in the mock exam. So if you go through those questions for enough times, at least you will be assured that you will get these questions right, and so basically there will be 3 points for you. In my opinion, I don't think this is very this doesn't play up the reputation of the certificate, because of course if you go sit for an exam, you should not get the exact same questions that you had in the mock exam. I think this degrades a little bit the value of the certificate, but of course I know that for some candidates, they will pass or they will fail by fine margins, 5 questions or even less. But still, it doesn't it doesn't feel as right as it should be in that sense. And so yeah, but this is just a minor detail. So to wrap it up, guys, once again, candidates with deeper knowledge of ESG, in my opinion, should begin by chapter 3, and they should be completely comfortable for them. Chapter 3 all the way to the ninth, and then leave chapters first and second for last, and then also for less experienced candidates in terms of ESG, of course, they should follow the chapter order of the curriculum. And so basically that's it. I know that I have some viewers and some subscribers of the channel have been addressing or sending me some questions through LinkedIn. Please do, as long as you have questions, I will be happy to answer them, and feel free to connect with me to if you need to ask any further questions down the line over the course of your preparation, not only in terms of the ESG certificate, but also in terms of the CAIA, also in terms of the CFA program. As long as I can share my experience with you guys and I can help you, yeah, it would be my pleasure. So that's it for today. And please don't forget to like and subscribe the channel, and we'll be in touch by the time the next video comes around. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Thank you.